episode of the Lei'd Back Life, where we talk about how to love life, entrepreneurship, and improve daily. Joining me today, an awesome guest. I'm hoping we're going to figure out a way to work some of Matt's questions of me into this episode because they're great. Before we jumped on. So for those who don't know Matt, he's the founder of Zillametrics, a law firm digital marketing agency and software company that focuses on helping lawyers 2x to 10x revenue, run a better business, and create more leverage in their law firm using a proven growth strategy that has helped 100 plus entrepreneurial attorneys. And I want to personally share that Matt is the one who I have heard the most consistently positive feedback about from all of his clients. So a gigantic chunk, if not all of those 100 plus entrepreneurial attorneys are very happy with you.
Yeah, I think that was a great intro. I'm glad to hear that. That's awesome. It was good seeing you last, what was it, a couple of weeks back in Max Law.
Yeah.
How was
So
how was the trip back for you?
good, man. I it's the first time I've ever gone to Max Law in the same time zone. So that was nice. And then government shutdown thankfully did not have our flight get canceled for 6 hours. Like I know some other people had some issues, but how about you?
Yeah, I ended up going to Clio that next week. And so I showed up like a day before to kind of get situated so I can go attend it like, in the morning. And so I'm at night, it's at nighttime. I order room service, I'm kind of just hanging out. And I didn't want to leave the food in my room. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna just go set it out so the room doesn't smell like food. I open my door like literally right across the hallway. It was like the ice trash. So I just go set it out. I hear the door lock behind me. I'm literally locked out in my boxers. And I'm like, are you kidding me, dude? No phone, no nothing. So I'm just like, shit. And so then I start walking to the elevators, and there's like a bar and lounge. I'm at the Westin right there in Boston. There's like a bar and lounge you got to walk by to go to the lobby and all that. And I'm like, damn it. So I'm like pressing the button on the elevator. People come up and then they're like, I'm like, yeah, I got locked out of my room. Don't trip. But luckily, like I scanned and there was a phone on the wall. Didn't have any buttons, but I picked it up. Somebody threw me a lifeline and the guy came up. He's like, yeah, this happens kind of a lot. I'm like, dude, yeah. So that's how that started out.
So
But back home now.
well, and great story because we're gonna talk about the numbers you need to know what's wrong in your life and your firm. So I think the number of hotel key cards you need to keep in your on your persons is one. It's not zero.
Yeah.
So yeah. So talk to me a little bit about this. Like so beforehand, Matt and I were chatting. Really good concept of knowing your numbers. So like walk me through. Obviously, every firm's gonna need slightly different numbers. So give me kind of that 3,000 foot view of what numbers we should know about our businesses.
I mean, really, generally like leads, consults, and then your close rate, really. But then the marketing sources of your leads, all the way to consults and clients. If you understand how those numbers are and you're paying attention to your average case value, then you're going to have a lot more visibility on how things are working and what to do to get it working better for you.
Because we have to do math, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing I feel like because there's a lot of moving parts in being able to get your numbers perfect. So one is just like, are you technically set up to do it? Right. So it's like, are you using CallRail? Are you capturing calls or leads? Like, how are you doing that? And how are you identifying the marketing sources? That's one. And then when it comes to like the CRMs, some of these embedded forms and stuff like that will not track marketing sources and CallRail and stuff like that. So you lose things there. And so it's like the technical requirements are like the first piece. And then the next piece is just like, how is the data kind of being consolidated together so you can make meaningful decisions on it? A lot of people are using either like, some fractional CMO, or they might just be using a VA to kind of like assemble this stuff on whatever frequency. But some of the problems there is like if people have a typo or the data isn't right, then it's like now all your decisions messed up. But then not only that, like you're kind of waiting for that to be updated. But then the firms that I see that are really like just growth focused and they're able to just really focus on that or people stuff and things like that is all the data is automated. There's very little inputs and it's getting pulled directly from the platform. So their speed and quality of decision making is better, because if you don't have that, it just takes you longer to make a decision you're going to be comfortable with.
Yeah, I'm on a not personal war, that's way too dense, but like Steven, we need to commit to one spelling because the amount of times that we'll like look up and it's a V or a PH and it's not obvious and or John with the H, no H. I'm like, man, I
Yep.
wish there was a way that they could get these reports to like know all of those other spellings and just give you everything in one shot.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm in a bunch of online groups, and there's always these people that talk about how miserable it is for their firm and how much they hate running it. And people give some really helpful advice. But I have not come across a book that incorporates all those things in one place. So I wrote it. Stories of some of my coaching clients. In there, though, you're also going to find our specific meeting agendas. You're going to provide how to put together a marketing plan. I really, truly poured my heart and soul into this book. I hope you'll check it out in the link below and enjoy it and ultimately get a chance to run the law firm you've always dreamed of. So, is it, if you were sitting down with a business owner on, I'm not going to say day one, they don't have enough cash flow, but like the beginning of a real commitment to marketing, do we start doing some marketing, or do we put these tracking metrics and numbers and stuff in place first?
So I think first you got to kind of understand marketing and what your budget is and what your goals are. So it's like you're not going to have the money to potentially put all this, implement it all together. And you can kind of
Okay.
get bogged down and like, oh, let me make my tech stack perfect. You really just need to start selling. You know what I mean? Start getting clients. And so if you're like a new firm just starting, definitely get a Google business, because you're going to have to stack the reviews, and over time, like that's going to give you the ability to get good quality organic leads. But initially, you're really just going to have to be hustling, referrals, networking with people, stuff like that. And I think a good, safe kind of first foray in the marketing is local service ads for the majority of firms, especially as a starting place, because you're not paying for the click, you're only paying for the call. The setups are very simple. There's no landing pages, there's no nothing else. All your ad literally is just your picture, your firm name, and the reviews, which is why though you want to get the Google business set up right away and start focusing on that, because that's really going to be the ad and how you start getting calls, cold traffic calls.
So, dear coaching clients, if this sounds familiar, it's because I may have taken Matt's advice on this when I gave any of you advice on where to start with marketing. Yeah, because it amazes me when people are like, all right, I'm finally ready to start with marketing, and now let me take like a 6 month searching into people and having them set this stuff up and rebuilding the website and all this stuff. And I'm like, but can you go 6 months without results? Like we obviously we have to set a
Hmm.
baseline at some point, but like we have to stay in business too.
Exactly. And that's one of the things where generally when I'm talking to somebody for the first time, I'm asking, one, how did you hear about us? Right. Because that should be just everybody should be doing that, because your call tracking or whatever tracking you're using might identify the source, but they are going to tell you, hey, maybe I heard about you from Jordan or whoever. Right. And so understanding your marketing sources or lead sources. And then, the next piece is just understanding, okay, well, what's my revenue goal? What's my average case value? And then that's going to let you know how many clients you basically need to be pulling in each month in order to hit that goal. And then from there, you can say, like, start figuring out how many leads you're going to need to get the consults. And working backwards, it's, you can immediately get your revenue goal, your average case value, and how many clients it's going to take. It's going to take some data tracking to understand really, how many consults does it take before we get a client, and how many leads does it take for us to get a consult. But once you start having a better idea of that stuff, then, it's a numbers game, and you're just kind of figuring out what is the restraint. Is it leads? Is it intake, consults, et cetera, your close rate, and just focusing your energy there.
I love that you frame it that way. I actually just had the second edition of my book come out, and I break it down almost exactly the same way and have them go through this. I'm curious though, from your expertise, like
Hmm.
just for the sake of math, let's say they need 100 leads. When you're
Yeah.
designing a marketing plan for them, are you designing it to exactly 100 leads? Are you designing it to 110? Or like, what's the buffer of our, because obviously like we don't know at the beginning, we don't know how many impressions will be required for a lead and whatnot. So like, how do you come up with that part of it?
Yeah. Like how many leads we're going to need each month to hit these goals.
Well, no, no. So like, let's say we know they need 100 leads over whatever, a year, a
Okay.
month, whatever the thing is. Like, are you designing a marketing plan to get to exactly 100 leads? Are you shooting for 110? Like when we don't have, when we're doing anecdotal evidence, right? When we're not running
Yeah.
ads for a $400 million John Morgan account where they can at some point the numbers all average out. Like, do we shoot for a slightly over that number? Do we shoot for slightly under at the beginning to build up our systems? Like, what's that thought process?
It's always going to be dependent on, how are you getting your leads and how much money do you have to put in the marketing, and how much is going to be, just like shoulder to shoulder, like brick for brick? Are you doing referral partners, stuff like that? If you type in K-Skull calculator into Google, we actually have, it doesn't require you to log in or anything, but what I'll do is usually start there. Then we can plug in the revenue, we can plug in the average case value, and then it'll basically show like, hey, assuming that you have a show rate of 75%, and then let's say, a third or 20% of your leads book, you're going to need this many leads to get this many consults to get this many clients. So it's, rather than focusing on the leads, it's like, let's focus on the clients, because we know that with the average case value and revenue goal, that number is solid. The things that are going to be unknown, especially starting out with no data, is like, hey, we got to figure it out. And so the same thing, like for example, if somebody's coming to me and they haven't run paid ads before, or they haven't ran them in a long time, one of the things I explain to them is like, the first thing we're doing is just buying data. Like, we're setting up the tracking, and we need to understand what it's costs. And that's why local service ads could be like a good destination, because you get an idea of what the potential cost is for a lead there. Now, this is going to, change depending upon your practice area, like whether it's PI and your geography, like how competitive it is, because it might get be hard to actually even get the leads, even if you have the budget, unless you're spending a lot. But for most practice areas like estate planning, criminal, family law, those are pretty good straight pathways.
Okay, so
I know it's
so
a
that people don't have to rewind, can you give us what to search for again?
Oh, just type K-Skull calculator into Google, and it'll come up. You don't have to log in or anything. It's a calculator. You can just play with it and figure out how many leads you're going to need to get to hit your goals.
Perfect, because I know
Yep.
I know people heard you say that and we're like, all right, wait, what was that? I got to go back and find it. So
Yep. And
cool.
it's a guesstimate, but then what you can take with that data is you go, okay, if I need 127 leads a month to get this many consults, because this many people will show up, and I'll basically close this many people, right? And a good for free consults, I'd say, like, let's say 3 out of 4 people show up, and then you should close 1 out of 3 of those people. Like, those are good baseline numbers. And then if you have paid consults, one thing to remember is like your lead booking rate, it's going to go down because you're adding payment as friction, but your show rate will go up. But I never
And your close
generally
rate
will.
should go up too, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All those numbers should lift like back on the funnel, but I never give anything a perfect score. Like, just because it's a paid console, I wouldn't say like, hey, we'll have 100% show rate. At least, like, the world's not perfect, so I'd probably usually put that at like 90%. But once you understand how many leads you need, what you can do is like go to Google Keyword Planner. So you have to have a Google Ads account, and you can put in the keywords that would tie back to that case, that whatever your average case value was, whatever cases you're focusing on, and then get an idea what the clicks will be. And then you can kind of feed that in the chat GPT, just ask it some questions. Hey, if my click was this and this is this, what should I expect in terms of people contacting me? And that'll give you some good kind of estimates. But that's why, like Alex Ramosi says, like, pick one platform, pick this, blah, blah, blah. That really doesn't work in the legal space, because it's just like, most people can't just jump in and dump everything in the paid, right? Because it's just too costly. You got to kind of focus on the organic right out the bat, Google business. But one of the things also to remember, just kind of going that tangent on the SEO side, is like, you shouldn't invest in SEO unless you can, pretty much afford to wait 9 months for that investment to pay off at minimum, depending upon where you're at and what your practice area is. It could be longer, obviously, could be shorter too.
I always love the people online that are like, this company quoted me $1,000 a month for SEO. Is that good or bad? And then people will give them an answer. And I'm like, you don't know where they're located. You don't know what practice area they are. You don't know enough. Like, oh my God, if
Hmm.
somebody could get me PI cases for 1,000 a month in SEO, I would take it in a heartbeat. But
Oh yeah.
it's going to do nothing in so many industries. So
Yeah. And it's just going to take forever, even if you do have progress, because I mean, it's not that much resources to dump into a competitive space.
If Tony Stark had a law firm, he'd automate all of it and spend a ton of time at happy hours and top golf. It amazes me how often when I'm working with firm owners one-on-one, we create a firm that is supported by them doing less, a life that helps them do more, and then tie those things together in a way where they have the success they've always dreamed of. If you're ready to delegate like Batman and lead like Captain America, click the link below and let's talk to see how we can work together to help you achieve the law firm you've always dreamed of.
it's interesting you mentioned sort of the marketing, building some of this stuff up. Otherwise, last week we had Stacey Brown Randall on. By the time you all are watching this, her second book is out, The Referable Client Experience. So we had a really cool Q&A on that and how you make your business referable, and ultimately how living a better life helps you become more referable and meet more people. And stay top of mind with them. So cool chat to check out after this. Don't jump over there yet though, because Matt is dropping some serious knowledge here. So walk me through the next steps of this, right? So we have started our marketing campaign. We've got some of these numbers in place. Like, how do we know that it's working?
How do we know it's working? Well, are you basically making money? Simply what it is. So before you start getting leads, you're going to have initial kind of KPIs or metrics that are showing you, okay, it's moving in the right direction. So on ads, for Google Ads specific, well, for LSAs, it's just going to be you're actually getting calls. Like that's the baseline. Like, okay, we turned it on, now we're getting calls. For Google Ads, before the calls, you're going to go, okay, we're getting impressions. People are starting to see our ads. And you can see this in local service ads as well. And then it's going to be, okay, what is our click-through rate? It should be on a search campaign above 5%. Generally, it should be like 12 to 15% if you're targeting a local area. And that percentage will go down depending upon, are you doing the full state, multi-states, national, and stuff like that. And then you should be looking for conversion rates of anywhere from like 10 to 30%. And that depends upon the area you're targeting and geography and stuff like that. But it's really like call rail. Like, look at call rail, listen to the calls, and then who's closing. Like, that's the only way to really measure it. Because if you're just talking about leads or clicks, or look at our CTR, to me, to a degree, like, they're vanity metrics. Like, they're not moving the needle. They're really things you look at if the other stuff, like, hey, we're not getting consults, or we're not getting calls, or nobody's signing up. That's when you start looking down there. But it's like, if you're looking at first, how many people are we closing? How many consults do we have on the calendar? And then, is the phone ringing? Like, pretty much trust your gut, because that's what people focus on, and that's what you should.
Well, and that the biggest thing for me, because people ask a million poorly poorly backed marketing questions, right? Like, what should I do to grow my practice? Hey, is $1,000 for this worthwhile, without like the background behind it? And I always tell them the biggest thing is getting a marketing company that's going to set expectations. So I love that you're sitting here giving us specific percentages and numbers and costs and stuff like that. And obviously, like, if you're sitting down with somebody one on one, you can get even more specific to it. But like,
Yeah.
to everybody listening to this, when you hear me say get some expectations, like, Matt is giving you some expectations for underperformance or proper performance of some of the different marketing things. So thank you for that, man. That's
Hmm.
huge.
Yeah, and to go a little bit further on there, SEO, because I know, there's a lot of talk around AEO and AI, and how is this going to kind of change the landscape and stuff like that. And then also too, everybody goes, well, what do I need to do? Because every agency you talk to is just going to say, hey, you need a better website, you need backlinks, you need more content. Like, literally, that's the pitch. Like, that's what everybody's going to say every time. And to a degree, it is right. But it's like, nobody wants to hear the lawyer answer, like, well, it depends. It's like, fuck that. Like, I'm the lawyer, right? And so what we do is we do a competitive market analysis where we look at the main keyword that drives the volume, right? So, like, for example, if you're in family law, it's either family law attorney or divorce lawyer. If you're in criminal defense, it's criminal defense attorney, lawyer, whatever, DUI lawyer. Like, those are the main terms that drive the most revenue and the most volume. And so it's like, focusing on that one keyword to do the audit makes more sense. And so then what we do is we look at who's in the 3-pack in this area, who's at the top of Google, because it's not generally the same firms. You'll see that, like, if you just
Mm.
type in like Orlando personal injury lawyer, it's not all the time you'll see the person that's in the 3-pack is also on page one. That's why we want to look at those separately, but in a grid. So it's like, here's the keyword, here's you, here's your competitors. And then we're looking at, well, what is their review rating? How many reviews do they have? What is the primary category they have in their Google business? What are the zip codes all these are in? Because Google, it's based on proximity to the searcher. And so there might be times, edge cases, where you're just having trouble ranking, but it's because, for whatever reason, that keyword where you're at, it's just showing people in a certain zip code, and maybe you're one over. So things like that help you uncover where the issues are. And then we're looking at, like, how many pages each website have, like, how many pages, what's the average word count per page, how many referring domains are there. And so it goes down into the weeds. But when you can see that apples for apples, you can go, okay, Google page speed, any of these, like, the top people in this city for this keyword, these are the things that's making them win. So here's how you compare to every one of them. Here's who's leading the pack in each category, and here's what the local average is. So it's like, you're either above or below it. And so then you just start with the low hanging fruit, key citations, quick wins. For example, like Justia, you can get a free profile. that free profile has a do follow link and it creates another profile on oyas.org and one CLE. And so like there's a handful of these legal citations that don't cost you anything, that just putting those in there is going to help you, you know?
Well, and I think the beauty of all this is when you are underperforming or when your LSAs are getting you this and your pay per click are getting you much lower, like you then know
Hmm.
what problem to solve instead of sitting there like, why aren't I making enough money?
Yeah, exactly. And then another thing too, it's like with SEO, it's like the most competitive terms are always like your city, your practice area, right? So like Chicago DUI lawyer, you know, whatever, pick your city, pick your practice area. Well, if you have to have your foundational website pages, meaning like you have to have pages for each of the case types in the locations you're serving them, right? But those are not going to just show up on page one right away. Those are going to take the longest. But what you can do to fast track rankings, get into AI summaries, this used to be the play that would just get you in the featured snippets all the time. It just focus all your blogs on question based topics, really more focused on what are your ideal clients? How are they asking it? Not a lot of people know this, but like Reddit is licensed their data to Google to the tune of like 60 million a year. And a lot of searches, if you type in like recommendations for attorney in your city, it's going to show Reddit. And so like they're using this natural language model for the AI summaries. And that's why you see it all question based. And so bad topic, good topic. So if I go to like an estate planning website and I see the blog post like, what is a will? I'm like, would you want that client? If this fucking guy is learning what a will is on your random website, you know, like where has this person been? But if you go like, hey, should I put my rental properties in a trust or an LLC? Yeah, search volume. Not a lot of people search for that, but the people that do, implied assets. And so if you can look at like what are the questions that people would have that have money, family law works really great like this. What happens is you can get those to page one and in the featured snippets within like, you know, 2 to 4 months. We see that consistently. And it's just a volume game to where once you have, you know, 100 of these questions that your ideal client would ask, every search that they have, and these are the searches that generally people aren't going right to the lawyer searches. They're asking questions about their stuff first. And, you know, so what we're doing is targeting all the questions that people ask before they type lawyer and attorney. And so that can, you know, start. It's like, I know this is a quote you'd probably like, the rising tide raises all ships,
Hey,
something like that.
yep.
Yeah.
High seas raise all boats.
Yeah. It's the same thing. Like you'll get those ranking faster because they're long tail, and those will kind of pull up the rankings of the more bottom of funnel stuff that just takes time.
Sorry, you know this way better than me. You said implied assets. I don't know if you meant like
Oh, that implies they
keywords.
have assets.
Okay, so keywords and questions that imply the person searching for those answers have assets.
Yeah. So like, you know,
Okay.
how would we, you know, what would happen to my business if in a divorce, right? Only somebody with a business is going to ask that question. You know, but versus if you go like, what is an uncontested divorce? Even if you do that, focusing a bunch of content around uncontested divorce is going to have you show for those keywords. And that is going to be generally a lower value client for the most part. And so unless your firm is built and set up for a volume and you want a lot of those, then you should avoid that kind of, you know, spending too much time talking about that, and talk about like, how do we divide 401k accounts? You know, what do we do with an out of state vacation home? Stuff like that, where, you know, the only person asking that is the person with money.
Okay, so if y'all are watching this as it comes out, it's Tuesday. This Friday, my newsletter is going to be on digital distractions and reclaiming focus. For me, my newsletter is basically like the blog post that Matt's talking about here. So Matt, I'm going to get super selfish. How does somebody find those right questions for that ideal client to answer? Because then, like, hey guys, you're going to see these as newsletters when I do what Matt says right now. So,
Hmm. So I think couple good starting points. One is if you're spending a lot of time in your space, you probably know of some sites where they're already asking these questions. You can also look on Reddit, on Quora, Avo to a lesser degree. I think there's a lot of like not the best questions on there, but once you, or start with kind of what you know, right? So it's like focusing on the assets, focusing on anything that would basically more point towards like a higher average case value, and then use ChatGPT and just start refining it from there. And then once you build it out, you know, you can start searching and you'll get other ideas for those keywords. But I think that's a good part, is start with like a handful of questions that you know only somebody like your only your ideal client would ask this, and then feed that in the ChatGPT, and then get some more ideas, and then from there boom, shoot it. And what's good about those blog posts too, especially like, with if you're doing video, is you can publish all these blog posts and Google needs the indexable content. So you can publish all those. But then what you can do is you can align your video production with your content calendar for SEO and then double back and record videos on all that stuff. So it's getting published, the link's going out, it's already getting indexed. Now you're coming back to update the page with the video. And then to add more content, you take the transcript of that video and just put it in an accordion. So then right above the fold, you got the video, you got a little accordion thing with the transcript, which is more indexable content, speaking with the nuance of an attorney. So it's just going to help make the piece more solid. And
Oh,
it's a
I love
pretty
that.
much repeatable way to rank.
And I want to highlight, you mentioned, collecting this data from the sources you're already aware of and then putting it in ChatGPT. I would push people to use the LLM in two different roles here. So the first role, I would say, like, I've got my ideal client avatar sheet. If any of you want it, it's on our website for free. Email me, I'll send it to you. Take
Nice.
that and put it into ChatGPT and say, hey, in this role, be my ideal client. What are you looking for online? What things might you not know? What sort of questions do you want answers to? And then I would also give ChatGPT the, hey, you're a 150 IQ SEO marketing genius. I'm trying to get in front of this sort of ideal client. What do you think they're going to search for? And I would be so interested to see how Venn diagram those two different answers are between like what questions they overlap and where like the marketing
Hmm.
expert and the role as the person would look for different things. So,
That'd
uh,
be an interesting way to do it. I think that could be good. You can also take, the site city-data.com.
no.
So it's like a nationwide site that has like really, really crazy demographics on pretty much every zip code. So it'll show
Okay.
you by renters, homeowners, ethnicity, sex, age, college education, everything, crime. And so you can even layer it in with that data too to go, okay, like these people in this area, because then the more you can speak like them and even like structure your questions and content that way, like you're going to connect faster. They're going to trust you. Every question that they literally type into Google, it'll be your firm popping up.
Well, it always cracks me up the amount of my clients who have a local intake person, and then the person's
Hmm.
talking about, oh, where the accident happened, like, oh my God, my cousin got in an accident at that same intersection, and they're like, oh my gosh, and they like, they hire the firm at a crazy
Yeah.
rate from that connection versus like, I don't expect your VA or digital answering service to know like the intricacies of that. So
Nuance.
I love that you're framing it in that
Hmm.
specific thing. What was that website again?
It's city-data.com.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Dude,
And
you
ChatGPT will pull stuff from there and it'll help layer in everything to it. So you can go like, hey, like what I think what you said is a great idea. You have this preset sheet because then if you can put the data in there, it's going to be a lot easier for the LLM to pull and extract it when it's thinking about your future prompts, because you just gave it a project file, right? That's how you do it.
well, the interesting thing, yeah, so that or I have it in a Word doc and then I just copy and paste it.
Hmm.
But then the interesting thing for me is because I always tell my clients, like, we can go about this in two ways. If you already have clients you love, like, let's figure out what they have in common, or, creating
Yep.
it from scratch. I can't imagine, like, if you already had the clients, then potentially you have their addresses and you could see the relationship. But if
Yes.
it's the going from scratch, I God bless you if you're going to sit down and be like, what area of town makes the most sense. But ChatGPT could fill
Hmm.
that in. Hey, I'm in Orlando. I'm looking for these types of people. It may say, hey, Winter Park would be great for you for that. It might say, Winter Garden might be better for this. The Disney area might be great for theme park accidents and those kind of things. Like, I'd be
Hmm.
really fascinated to see having AI plug in the holes of your ideal client avatar and then giving you a better response back on getting in front of them once it patched those holes.
Oh, we actually have done that before. So we got a client, David Shapiro. He's a criminal defense attorney in San Diego, and he uses Lawmatics, and he's like pretty good at making sure that like he's got all the data points there. So occupation, age, address, all that stuff, where they live, things like that. And so we were basically able to take a year's worth of data, minus the actual personal identifiable information, just zip codes and stuff like that, and then feed it in the ChatGPT. And then this was based off of all of their information, but only for people that actually retained. And it was a year's worth of data. And so what we were able to do is build the perfect client avatar, because it was like, hey, these top 4 industries in terms of like work, these are where your clients are concentrated. His office is downtown. He had opened up an office in Chula Vista, but then when we did that audit, we realized like, okay, the coastal region, North County and East County is actually where you get all your business. And so if you have the data, that's also a good strategy for deciding, where am I going to get my next Google business location, because that's an effective growth strategy for a lot of firms, especially PI, where it's like, hey, let's just plug in an office location somewhere where we can get some reviews, get ranking, and choose the places that are less competitive but still have demand, or like the attorney per capita is just smaller there. So instead of like banging your head against the wall in like a super competitive city, you can look at all the tertiary ones and go, okay, let's just do here. And then you end up with the same volume over time, and you just use co-working or remote spaces to not sign a bunch of office leases, basically. But that was been the most effective way to get insights. And part of what we did with that study too is we had like the call rail transcriptions and sentiment analysis and all that stuff for all that. And so what it was also able to do, and we did this for not just people to retain, but just everybody. This is just one data set, but I found that this is consistent across most firms. Like, I know there's going to be one person that's going to look and be like, you're fucking wrong, but got him. But if you look in CallRail, if you're tracking that, it's like Monday through Wednesday, generally for first time callers for most firms, tends to be the busiest times. And some firms are consistent all week, but just overall, like if you're looking at a lot of accounts, super consistent in seeing that. And then what the AI was able to analyze is like, people that call on Monday are generally more likely to retain. And if you and same thing for people that call in the morning. And how it explained it was, well, if you call in the morning, you planned on calling the night before, so you're already prepared. You know what I mean? You're looking for the solution, versus what it found, like with these specific studies that we did, was that people that called in the afternoon are more likely to be price shopping or just had a quick question and things like that. And it's pretty interesting. I've found that data kind of holds true, where, I mean, we have clients that get calls Monday through Friday, but if I was to generalize it, totally see that.
It's a priority for the client. Call at to call at the beginning of the week, to call at the beginning of the day. Like, was something important for them that they wanted to get through, not, oh, I had 5 spare minutes, let me see how cheaply I can find representation.
Yeah. And how you can use that data, right? Because that'd be a lot of persons like next idea. Okay, like that's cool. What can we do with it? Well, if you're running ads, what you can do, and you have a lot of data, you can look at what are the times that people contacted our firm that retained. And right, if you do this a week or a month or a couple months of data, like it's not going to be effective. But if you have a year or a couple years, and then you can go, okay, well, like literally all of the people that have hired us from Google Ads called from 11 a.m. to 2 Monday through Thursday. Well, then you can choose to basically only show the ads at the time, or you can choose to just do a negative bid adjustment, which is saying like, hey, I'm willing to show my ads on Friday, but I want a 30% discount. So it's a negative bid adjustment. So you're just saying, I'm only willing to pay 30% less for this click, or whatever. You can put 50, you can put whatever you want. But then what happens is you can still kind of maintain the same visibility all week, but you're concentrating your budget around the times that historically the people that contact during those times retain. And so that's a good strategy to just really squeeze more out of your ads, because reality is like that shit just gets expensive every year. It just goes up. Like that's the one thing that's been consistent about Google Ads, even with all the changes.
Let's get real for a moment. I'm terrible at most things. And so the goal for me as a firm owner, as a coach, and as a human is to stay in my zone of genius as often as possible. I used to think I could do that if I could clone myself. I realize now that that's terrible, because instead I want to find people who their zones of genius are my weaknesses, and then together we can create phenomenal companies. To do that, we put together the complete hiring process. We're also incorporating how to use AI and other technology to get better questions during the interviews, to find the right person in a faster, more efficient way. So if this is something that you struggle with, click the link below and purchase our complete hiring process to find amazing people to execute the vision you've always wanted.
Well, and so you and I talked about taking this same mindset to other things in life. So I want to talk about our next episode, and then I want to come back to focus on that for the last 10 minutes or so. Next week, we got Jen Gore coming on. She's the managing partner of Sweet James, Georgia East Coast operations and the founder of Atlanta Personal Injury Law Group. She now leads the Georgia expansion of that firm, combining the firm's nationally recognized success with her award-winning approach to personal injury law. She also is like super cool. I think that's an intentional part of what I find in my guests. So she's passionate about fostering close working relationships with clients with compassion and efficient legal representation, but like really puts herself into it, really puts herself out there in a way to connect with people one on one, to the extent that she also coaches and mentors entrepreneurs, helping them start or grow their business by sharing her expertise in leadership, marketing, and law firm management. So super excited to have Jen on next week. All right, so Matt, we've talked through, setting up some of these metrics. We've talked through, focusing on the metrics that are going poorly, doubling down on the ones that are going well. I seriously am going to steal the thing you talked through in terms of having ChatGPT and finding the specific questions that really get to like that more complicated question. How do
Hmm.
we take this same mindset to the rest of life? How do we apply this to, getting in better shape? How do we apply this to being a better parent? Like, what's the crossover in these, KPI focused, numbers focused problem solving?
Okay, I can get down in the weeds. So like on the fitness piece, and I'll get into kids and family and stuff after that. But one of the things I've done is I've been really working way more intentional about that this year.
Well,
And
in
one of the
case you get
things I
locked out in your
did,
boxers, you want to be able to
you
show
know,
off for everybody in the
yeah,
lobby.
exactly. I'm like, all right, shit. You know what I mean? But so what I did when I was like, and I got four kids. So I just had my fourth like a month ago. So he's a month old. I got a 15-year-old girl, a 9-year-old girl, a 4-year-old boy, and then this new one. And so I'm 41. Like I'm not getting any younger. That being said, it's like your first 40 years, sometimes like I didn't think I'd even live this long, but it's like, okay, for the first portion of your life, you're kind of shitting your pants and don't have control. Now I'm 40 and I kind of get to hit this next 40 years if I get that, with this mindset I have now. So I'm like, okay, health has to be a priority. Like at this age, it's mandatory. Like if you want to be there for your kids and just be mobile, have a healthy life. So what I did is I use questhealth.com. I get
Okay.
like the elite fitness profile. I've done that like three times. So I have like three separate sets of like these blood draws where they show everything, like all your, biomarkers, all that stuff. And then what I did is I fed that in there. And then what I did is I measured my body before I
Fed that in
started, like,
where?
hey, neck, arms. And ChatGPT, a
Okay.
ChatGPT project, right? So I uploaded all those results. So it was like three results over three different periods. And then I just measured like neck, shoulders, arms, chest, all that stuff, put in there. And then I go, okay, here's my age, weight, boom, boom, boom. I go, here's my fitness goals. Here's how big I want to be, stuff like that. And then it just started breaking it all down. But it's got like literally my measurements, my weight, my age, everything else. It's got all kinds of information on like my actual health. And then it was able to build it out and then to add a little bit more insights to it. This is a little hack I use that works for anything. Is if I see people talking about stuff on YouTube and I'm like, okay, this guy's fucking smart, right? Or she's like, oh, this is such a good idea. I'll
Which
take
for
the
everybody who thinks that's
transcript.
your episode right now with the specifics of their marketing. So
Hopefully. But, I'll just go to the show transcript and I'll pop that into a project file. And so then this way now it has everything it has access to, but now it's got some specific nuance from some information that you've learned from. And so I did that. And then it built out my whole fitness program. It said, hey, you're even able to ask it like, hey, how long will it take for me to get this, assuming I do all this and don't miss any dates? And then, so then to track all that stuff, I use Jeffit. It's Jefit. It's like a workout app that lets you like set up your workout, log each set, each rep, and then I use MyFitnessPal to track your macros basically. And if you just get enough sleep, eat protein, eat like 1 gram or a little bit more per pound of body weight every day, and I eat mainly carnivore, boom, and work out, like it's working. And what was cool about it is I was like, hey, it shot me up like this grocery list and shit I needed to order. And I'm like, dude, I ain't trying to put my wife through that, and I can't cook. So like I need to simplify this. I'm gonna have an air fryer and I'm gonna just eat primarily carnivore. And it was just like stupid simple, and I'm like, cool, boom,
hey,
that's it.
there
Was
we
able to
go.
print it out.
So
Yep.
I've been on a similar journey. I had to cut down though from the 1 pound, 1 gram of protein per pound because I had the meat sweats like 24 hours a day and couldn't sleep. It was the weirdest. I was like, so I
Yeah.
figured out for me like 150 to 170 grams works, but like once I get closer to 200, on my entire body is just a furnace.
Yeah. Yeah, I've gotten used to it at this point. Like this morning I ate a steak, 4 eggs, and 3 pieces of bacon.
There we
And I don't
go.
mind the carnivore diet, it's pretty solid, but it's like, yeah, it is what it is.
Well, and I think, and the beauty of it is then when you continue to track it through, you said
So
Quest.
I use MyFitnessPal to track food
Yeah,
because it has like this massive library. You can even scan food and it pulls everything up. I'll use Jeffit to track like my actual workout, like how much weight did I lift, etc. And then Quest Health to basically track
Quest
all like
Health.
my biomarkers. Yeah.
Well, because that
And then
was
I'm
the
feeding all that data in the one project in Chat GPT.
because like that's what I've heard for people like they'll commit to this diet and then it'll not be good for them from a lipids profile, whatever. So like having that
Yeah.
blood testing in place to confirm the markers becomes super helpful.
Yeah, because I even had like before I started working out, my cholesterol was a little high, which is crazy because I've just never even had that issue ever. And you would think eating a bunch of bacon and steak and eggs and all that shit every day, that actually totally normalized because I eat super clean now for the most part, but then started exercising versus before I wasn't. And it's all clean. So you can kind of I think if high protein diets definitely have helped my energy and everything else.
There we go. Well, and it's amazing to me like we are talking about the exact same thing, right? So we have the
Hmm.
metrics in place for the marketing, we have the metrics in place for the macros and the workouts and the blood tests. We have focusing on, LSAs versus the carnivore diet. Like it's the same process, and the beauty of it is you don't have to waste time figuring out what's wrong, right? Like if you don't work out for the week, you know it because you have this track there in the numbers. If your LSAs
Hmm.
tank, you know it because you're tracking what the results are. Like it's amazing to me how much clarity we get putting these things in place. Like everybody thinks I'm, anal and have no fun. And I was like, no, I have more time for fun
Yeah.
because I don't have to sit here for 4 hours wondering like why isn't my life the way I want? I can be like, oh, this one thing is out of whack. Let's throw
Hmm.
extra effort in getting it back.
Yep. Yeah, that works perfect like that.
All right. Well, so with that, what about kids? Because now, like, I have one kid, and sometimes that's the whole thing. So with four, walk me through the numbers of raising better children.
Okay. Yeah. So with that, once you understand what your commitments are, right? When it comes to work and all this kind of stuff, like you know how much time you have in the day. Some of my kids go to school, some are a little bit too young for that, right? And so it's just like, what can you give them that's going to be meaningful to them? And you can spend like it's not like every day you're going to be able to do a bunch of stuff. So one of the things that could be helpful is like stacking good habits together. So for example, like in the morning, I cook breakfast. You know what I'm saying? So it's like my kids are going to have the memory of like, hey, dad cooked me a breakfast every day, and sit there talking with them and stuff like that. Then when it comes to reading, like, they push back a little bit, but it's like I'll have them read business books with me just a little bit. Then we'll read a fun story, right? But it's like even my 4-year-old, I'll ask him what an asset is. He'll be like, an asset puts money in your pocket. And he's a little smart ass, but like he knows the stuff and he can shoot it. So I think
It's
that's good. And
awesome.
then another thing is that's I think helpful, and not everybody has this advantage, but I have a remote company, and so we all work from home. I work from home. I ended up just converting my garage into a gym, so it's just super convenient, less excuse, less having to go drive somewhere. But the other added advantage of that is like when I go to work out, I take my kids outside. I'm playing with them. They see me working out, and even my 4-year-old son now, he's been more like he wants to pop his shirt off and go out there and try to start lifting some stuff. And it's like, if they see you doing these behaviors, then they just kind of naturally do it. And then we'll do like Saturday fun days. We'll have like a movie night each week, kind of spending some time, play some card games here and there. We generally well, my wife's just got done being pregnant, but we generally will, take a couple trips each year, go do something fun.
I like
I don't know.
just
I
got
think
done
it's
being
just,
pregnant. That's the undersell. Your wife just gave birth for the fourth time.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
She's glad we're retired now.
there we go. Well, but it's I like multitasking, I think is so BS, but I love multi-impacts. And so I love the fact like, so you're getting family time and gym time together in the same thing. You're getting the family travel and the togetherness and the refreshing break from work type stuff together. Like that's the key to success is it's not cramming more into your day. It's figuring out where you can check multiple boxes with something you genuinely enjoy. Maybe it's the working out. Hopefully it's spending more time with your children while you work out, but
Hmm.
whatever box it takes, I support anybody.
Actually, on the Ring camera, so my kids got those little, those electric like Jeeps pretty much that they
Yeah.
can kind of drive around and stuff. And my son had got like this Razor big wheel. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They're like literally a big wheel, but it's a Razor kind of like scooter brand, whatever. But the
Okay.
wheels on the back, they rotate like this. So when he rides it, he can just spin around and do 360s, right?
Oh, that's
So
cool.
so my big ass got on it because he's like, try to ride it, Dad. So I'm out there just looking like Bowser riding this big wheel. And then my son just comes running into me, literally in his Jeep, laughing like Jeepers Creepers, like pushed me right into my wife's car. It's like all got caught on the Ring camera. I was like, dude, yeah, it was, but we have fun. We have fun.
There we go. That's awesome. And like that's what life should be about, right? Like there are things that we need to do as means to an end, like
Hmm.
marketing for the purpose of cases for helping people for getting the income. But like the more you can then utilize your extra time and have, KPI, the fun stuff in life in place as well, like the better everything's gonna be.
Yeah. And one of the things too, like me and my wife haven't been the best at this because we really don't have family out here. And so, yeah, I don't want to leave our kids with people. You know what I mean? Like we don't know them, but my mom's moving out here. So I say that to say like we haven't been on a lot of dates over the past couple years. And so that's been one more thing. We've been on trips, but we always have the kids with us. The last time we went on like a solo trip, we've done like two in like 4 years, which is pretty bad. But it's like we have a lot of fun and going on family trips and stuff like that. But my mom's actually in the process of moving out here
There we
and she's
go.
here now. She came out here a little bit before the baby was born. And so it's like now we're able to kind of start planning for that. I think that's helpful that having a good life is just making sure you carve out that time with your spouse, be intentional about it. And then also like work to get a good tribe in your community, whether it's like good neighbors or we go to church, got some cool friends and stuff like that, where, you just build a community around you because it's going to be obviously beneficial for you, but it's good for your kids to have good people in their life. So they just see the dynamics from other people and see that other people care about them and stuff like that. Because
All
you
right.
can't
So,
be everything to anyone, right? Like it's just, and you can't be everything to your kids. And so you really just need to build an environment to where they get what they need, you know?
I agree. Hey, so you have dropped more specific nuggets of wisdom, I think, than anybody else in this episode of any of our episodes. So for people that want more of those nuggets of wisdom, what's the best way for them to connect with you? What's the best way for them to keep in touch? What's the best way for them to, get their marketing realigned with all these numbers and stuff?
Yeah, just email me, matt@zillametrics.com, or they can follow us on, Zillametrics is our user handle everywhere. But yeah, just email me directly or hit us up on the website.
There we go. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you to everybody who watched or listened to this. I know you got a ton out of it because I did. I have a whole project now to ChatGPT some better newsletter topics. In the meantime, we'll see you back here next week for Jen Gore's episode. And between now and then, please, 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 get one more number in place, or if they are, look at your numbers and figure out where you can put your focus because we're all going to have problems in life. But if you can focus on the right ones, you'll find that much more success. Thank you, Matt, for being with us. Thank you, everybody, for the time, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Jordan. Thank you.